evening and welcome to News Sources, the show where we don't stifle opinion, as long as those opinions and comments stay within what is just, what is fair, and what is factual. Welcome to Ladies' Night on this Wednesday night offering of News Sources. My name is Julie Masiga, but first, the highlights.
If you are born of brave soul, if you really believe in what you have done, we are willing for you to have a mass resignation from this party.
Somalia cannot repudiate its obligations and then portray itself as a victim of Kenya.
How is it that the very journalists that have been fighting for the rights of so many innocent Kenyans are now the very victims who are being killed left, right, and center with contempt?
Now, ODM leader Raila Odinga yesterday started his 4-day tour of Kwale and Taita Taveta counties. This comes on the backdrop of defections by 13 party leaders. Could this tour be seen as a response to the ruling coalition's foray into the region, or that Raila Odinga is on a routine tour of his strongholds?
Hatutaki kule magawanyiko. Wakati kifika tumesema uteuzi utafanyika kwa njia ya haki na ukweli.
Right, so Raila Odinga there on a tour of the coast, which is traditionally an ODM quad kind of stronghold. What do you make of this show of might at this point in time? Could it be like a reaction to what's happening on the political scene, Jambi?
Well, I think for starters, it comes off as a reaction. I think this is the second tour, the second visit to the coast in 1 month,
yes.
and the third in 2 months. So automatically it comes off as I am trying to secure this stronghold. Secondly, it would seem like Raila is playing catch up. You know, Jubilee is out there going to the place, disintegrating the coalition or the party from within with all the defections that are going on. So right now, while it's still very early in the race, it would seem like Raila is still trying to play catch up while Jubilee is going into where it's considered not to be the stronghold.
Good point, but it's early days, as Jambi says, so,
yeah.
And he's playing catch up in early days. What does this portend?
Well, some of the things that we could look at to just explain this phenomenon of what's happening at the coast include the Malindi by-election. As you said, the coastal region has been traditionally ODM, but the sort of gains that, not that they won the seat, but the sort of gains in terms of votes towards Jubilee's candidate are an indicator of the changing sentiments. And despite Hassan Joho assuring us a few weeks ago that everything is okay, this to me seems to be damage control sort of tour, on the same vein as how he went to Western Kenya when similar sort of defections were happening or appeared to be happening in Western Kenya. So I think that there's trouble in ODM. Yeah.
Yes, and actually I think it's when the Kwale governor defected,
yes.
And then that's kind of like signaled, kind of like a shaking of their strongholdness, if there's a word like that, of their might in that particular region.
Yeah.
And as Raila was speaking, he kind of poked fun at Jubilee for forming this big party when they had promised people that they would recognize, so he says, the smaller outfits. What's
actually,
your
it's very true, Julie. I mean, Raila was talking about this, the Jubilee party and specifically the Jubilee government, like he was referring to them as monkeys, moving from one tree to another. I think that is very interesting. But having said that, it is very true that indeed ODM are trying to, and especially Raila himself is just trying to stamp his authority in the region. It's his very strong support base, but he can't just ignore this coming at a time when he has lost 13 governors and MPs to Jubilee Party. So that is a very strong sentiment coming from, his members of his political party. And so he just has to go to the grassroots and reassure his followers, his support base that, we are doing well.
We're still strong.
Yeah, we are still strong. Yeah, so really having lost somebody like like Salim Buria, for instance, Gideon Mongare is a very strong member of parliament, having been in ODM. So this visit is very key for him. And again, the Coast region is a very, I would say, a very important region for any political institution, for any political party. Because we've seen Jubilee, they've been there. The president has over time been there, either opening a show or a market
summit,
or issuing title deeds. So that communicates a very strong message that, this is a very strong...
There are votes to be had in the Coast
Exactly, exactly.
And then it's funny that he talks about the Jubilee Party as being mammoth and undemocratic. And then just the other day, Kalonzo Musyoka says that they might consider having a CORD party.
Actually, they are not just considering. The insinuation was that they are in the process of turning CORD instead of an umbrella coalition into a political
party.
Yeah. Okay. The irony about Raila saying this is that by 2007, ODM itself was that size of a mammoth political party, and it is only through the the splintering to become ODM Kenya and ODM that it's reduced its size. But it was just as large, it was just as inclusive, and they did not absorb other smaller political outfits. That's a key difference. But they were as inclusive in terms of the ethnic diversity, except for significant chunks of the central Kenya. So there's nothing wrong in my view, and we had this conversation about Jubilee, merging all these parties under one political party, because it's time for more inclusivity. I think that the smaller parties and the smaller ethnic communities now have that opportunity to, get a chance at a national level and be stakeholders on an equal footing. How it plays out it sounds so good, yeah?
The structure of it and the actual putting people in different positions to work together is going to be a bit technical.
Those are two different things.
And the president has promised that, guys, go to the nominations. If you fail, we'll sort of, give you a position in government. So I don't know how they're going to reward all these people, because definitely not everybody is going through the nominations, and we have so many.
There'll be very many people who miss out. But then Raila has said time and time again that ODM has the largest reach in terms of a national party, ODM as itself, not the CORD coalition. Is Jubilee similar? Do you think with all this merging of parties, it's widened its reach, or is it just all technical and cosmetic in a sense?
Especially with the defections. You can say that. Despite people, okay.
Looking at just keep on talking.
Despite people, claiming, these guys have gone and we're still our voters.
Finish your thought?
You're still our voters. The fact is, these MPs, these governors, still have very strong voter bases, and that is an indicator. That is an indicator. So they have come in and they're able to push for their constituents.
Right. Well, sticking to matters CORD and ODM. ODM now wants 13 members of parliament and governors who recently defected to the Jubilee Party stripped of their membership. This disciplinary mechanism could lead to the rebels losing their seats if their names are struck off the party's register. This comes after Wiper leader Kalonzo Musyoka asked defectors to leave. Are we looking to have by-elections just 10 months before the next general elections, or is CORD punching above its political weight?
Instead of being so immoral as to continue earning in the next 10 months money which should be earned on account of Wiper, they should do what Honorable Raila Odinga did during the time when he formed the NDP. And that was basically to leave his seat, resign from his seat in Parliament, and he went to the people of Lang'ata and he sought a fresh mandate. 10 months is a very long time for people to have, in my view, immoral money.
Right, 10 months is a long time for people to be making immoral money, he says there. Well, do you think that we should subject this country to 13, more or less, by-elections because of defections? How should we handle this?
I find it very interesting that he's using the word immoral money coming from.
It's ironic.
It's very, very ironic. And sure, it states that a seat can fall vacant once a member of parliament or a politician moves from the party or even shows any initiative towards a loyalty towards another party. But that said, we don't even have a commissioner. We don't have commissions. The IEBC commission has not been constituted as of right now. So to even ask for a by-election 10 months before the elections is punching above their political weight. What do you think?
I think that, to be honest, if I was one of these politicians, they have not written to the Speaker of the National Assembly saying, you know what, we have defected. So if you just saw me in a red T-shirt somewhere, I can even say I was not
but
there.
But surely, if they went for the launch of the Jubilee Party,
yes, it's freedom of
that?
association. I was invited to a party. What is the problem with that? And so these are the sort of arguments I would present if such an application was made to the Register of Political Parties asking to remove me from their role. I would appeal on those grounds and say, I have the freedom of association. I wasn't there. Can they prove that I was there? I've not written that I've defected, and waste everyone's time for the next 3, 4, 5 months. And then during that time, basically we've run out of time to actually go into a by-election, and we go into the main elections. But again, this is a very frivolous thing to state 10 months to the election. Honestly speaking, just, bite the bullet. They've gone. Even if you have a by-election, these are very strong candidates. They are your candidates that won.
Yes, but it's the principle of the thing that matters, because they came into office on a court ticket, whichever party it was on. So ideally, they should be loyal to their party till the bitter end.
The Constitution is very clear. We have politicians like Gideon Mongaro has come out in public to say, what, I have defected to the Jubilee Party. What happens to that? And ODM has already started, as written actually to the Registrar of the Political Parties, to say we want these politicians to explain or rather, confirm if they have left the party or they are still in the party. So if we go by the law, then there is actually a chance that we could actually go to the by-elections, because if you're deemed, according to Article 103 of the Constitution, if you're deemed to even have resigned from your political party, then you have to seek, re-election using your other party. So that is what the law says. We can't, if we're going by the Constitution, then we might actually go to a by-election.
But does Betty have a point by saying
she has
the burden of proof is on court to prove that these people have actually defected?
I would waste the time, the press's time.
They have to prove. But when we have politicians like Gideon Mongaro has come out in public to say, I have defected, what does that present?
It's not a letter.
Can I point out whether they are found to have defected or not? This moving forward with by-election 10 months into the election is impractical and expensive. I mean, at the end of the day, I call it a tantrum. Sure, we go by the law, but in this case, it's coming off more of a tantrum than anything else, considering the duration that is there before we have the general election.
Oh yeah, it's been politicized, and everybody is trying to get mileage from all this defection thing.
It's true, but then again, we always say we want structure, we want people to do due process, to follow the letter of the law.
Yes.
The systems must work for us. This is a perfect example where the system actually is saying we should have by-elections.
But you know what? This is also what do you call it? It's a precedent. Yeah. The last time a seat fell vacant in this manner through a defection was in 1995, if I'm not wrong. And after that, every other by-election was either someone was appointed as CS or somebody died, unfortunately. And so now you have 13
Two governors, I think, a deputy.
It is going to be very hard for you to convince the public that this is worth going forward into. There's a fact that you'd need at least 6 months. Okay, so we have 10 months. I waste the court's time for 4. Waste everyone's time.
But what we are saying, Julie, is that then we don't have systems in this country that work.
We don't want them to work.
We are just admitting that we don't have systems that work in every other institution almost. We're looking at a registrar of political parties who is acting for the longest time possible. I don't even know if she has, the power to, to authoritatively say we're going to a by-election. or respond to ODM and say this is the way forward. You know?
So everything is kind of a gray area.
Yeah, we could go back to the courts and it will take forever. You know, we have election malpractices and somebody sues and, you know, files a petition and it takes, you know, another like 6 months or something to finalize.
And when you have people like Isaac Mwaura, who's nominated, not actually elected, also deciding, perhaps according to Betty, they have not officially made their intentions known, but deciding that they might want to go to the other side. When you're thinking about voting next year and choosing your representative, do you kind of sometimes step back and wonder if they'll actually deliver what you want them to, given our history?
Well, you know what? We're talking about two different things. Okay, it sounds different, but on paper it is different. You're talking about Isaac Mwaura, for instance, being a nominated MP, moving from one. I don't know if he has actually come out and said, "I'm going." You know,
it seems like the implication is that he
was
might.
invited to a party.
He spoke.
Why would I invite you to a party of mine if I didn't want you there?
During the law, even being present,
yes,
sends a very
and
strong
I was invited
message.
to a party. You know, and
The fact that somebody has invited you means that you have there is some kind of relationship
it's just
going on
a
there.
party. And so you see, like, and now if you follow the law, I have to write to the National Assembly and say, you know what, I'm out of here, and I'm not going to Wiper, and I'm not going to Ford Kenya. I'm actually going to Jubilee, and under those circumstances, that is when the ODM can come and say, okay, you know what, we want to withdraw a nomination, and he goes home. He is very unfortunate if that happens, because there's no by-election, and he can waste everyone's time. Why me?
Let's give the registrar the benefit of doubt.
Yes, let's
can do
watch
this.
and see how this story unfolds. But moving on, amid criticism over the closure of the world's largest refugee camp, President Uhuru Kenyatta cancelled his trip to a UN summit that is focusing on the humane treatment of refugees. The president was not seen in public for a straight 3 days. Deputy President William Ruto is currently representing Uhuru at the United Nations General Assembly. No reason was given for Uhuru's cancellation at the 11th hour, despite reports his advance team had left for New York. So Uhuru there not traveling, clearly has not traveled to the UN General Assembly, which is kind of like a big deal in UN and international circles, and it's kind of unclear why he didn't go.
Yeah.
But he's back at home now in full campaign mode.
Yeah.
Could that have been the reason he stayed back, or could there be something else happening?
Well, the official statement from Manoa is that the president needed to deal with sensitive issues about South Sudan and Somalia that needed him to be personally there. So that's why he sent Deputy Ruto over to Canada and the US. But then this is not the first time Uhuru has said no to UNGA. You remember back in 2013?
2013, the circumstances were kind of
they were
beyond his
different.
control.
So in this case, it said that was what happened. Now there is an alleging that after the Ntimama funeral, right? I'm sure you've heard of it. When the Jubilee House was attacked, he found the need, or he saw the need, to pass the message to the international and local parties, or rather local allies, that this indeed is a coalition party. So what better than to send Ruto to a meeting of the head of states, you know, to negotiate and come up with treaties on his behalf. So that is what is going on, according to some people. But how it comes off ultimately is still out there. We don't know what is happening out in the public.
Well, we do know he's here.
He's here.
And Ruto is there. And if you think back, during the launch of the JP Jubilee Party, the first days Ruto was in Arusha and Uhuru was here, and now during this whole revitalizing their campaign base and all that stuff, Ruto is in New York. Does this have any implications on the Ruto succession, or what are you drawing from these machinations?
Well, I wouldn't go so far as to think about the succession. We are going into an election. I would say let's think about this election in particular. One of the things that we've noticed since the launch of Jubilee Party is there's a lot of infighting. I'm using that word, infighting. I know it's strong, but there's a lot of mvutano, and And I would say, in my view, I would see Uhuru as the uniting factor, that he's able to bring together all these different ethnic communities and these different interests, and get them to just sit at the table and figure it out and sort out their differences. The issue about the Political Parties Act being amended, and then you have to go into nominations. Once you don't get your nomination, there's no moving from. That is big. It's a really big thing. I don't know how Jubilee will survive that, and that's one of the first tests that they're going into. Having said that, Kenya is one of 5 countries that is hosting nearly 90% of the world's refugees, and the situation at Dadaab itself was untenable. You have a situation where and this is from the perspective of the UNHCR, that the funding for the camp and its services had dwindled, and that the resources had dropped over the last 2 years. Then at the same time, you have the pressure from the government talking about security concerns and etc. And then you have a repatriation program that began after refugees started going home on their own. Of course, UNHCR is concerned about the safety of those who are returning and the conditions to which they're returning. But at the same time, the Kenya government is within its rights to ask people, okay, you've been here 25 years, been real.
Yes, it's been real. But which begs the question, Betty, which is more important? Because the refugee crisis is huge. I would say perhaps even bigger than our own election in terms of moving forward as a country. So what was more important in this instance, to stay behind and campaign if that was the reason? Or to go and actually make a case for why Kenya is trying to repatriate 600,000 refugees?
I think it was actually very crucial for the president to attend this summit, the UN General Assembly. Whether there is a political angle to it, the infighting that Betty is talking about, and, trying to just portray Ruto as, this a very good deputy president that we work with very closely together is a different issue altogether. But I think that there could be also a very strong message that the president is communicating to the international community. Remember that the DP in his address actually pointed out that Kenya has not received as much support, in terms of funding. With regards to this whole issue of refugee repatriation. For instance, the international community had pledged about $500 million, that is about 50 billion, and he's saying that we have received just a portion of that. So could it be that the president is saying, communicating a message to the international community that we have not even received the support that you pledged? So, and so it's out there for the international community to now read between the lines. But having said that, remember that Obama called the president to talk about the elections, the refugee issue. So it goes back to just show the weight, and the sense of importance that the General Assembly has.
Yes, and also the kind of caliber of campaigning we're seeing with going to Kenyatta Market.
Yeah, I mean, why would you stay to go and campaign at Mlango Kubwa and have this? I mean, for me, it's not. I don't think the campaigns can wait.
It's still very early on.
Yeah, it's very early. We still have about how many months to go? 10 months, maybe 8 months to be practical for campaigning. Honestly, for me, I think you should have attended
I think that I agree with you in this regard. I think that he is sending a very strong message to the international community. As Faith has said, the international community has pledged support, but that support was short in coming. UNHCR has also said the same. You had the German ambassador visiting. Why me? Anyway, so you had all these countries just fall short of those pledges, and I think that he is exhibiting displeasure at this.
Yeah.
Right. Well, judges at the ICC have now indicted Kenya for non-cooperation in the now terminated case of President Uhuru Kenyatta. The court has found that Kenya had refused to provide important information requested by the prosecution. The judges have now referred Kenya to the Assembly of State Parties to decide Kenya's fate. But this action will have no immediate impact on the collapsed Kenyan cases, but will it affect politics locally? Will it affect cases? Sorry, we have...
Might be regarded as the truly critical material. I don't want to rehearse submissions I've made before about the likelihood of somebody who is involved in offences wanting to cover their tracks.
I sent off communication to the Registrar of Companies. I sent out communication to the Communication Authority of Kenya, to Airtel, to Safaricom, to the Central Bank of Kenya, to the Kenya Revenue Authority, to the Ministry of Lands, to the National Intelligence Service, to the National Transport and Safety Authority. If we desired to delay or obstruct, there would have been no reason for me to commence these consultations.
The cases that will just not go away. And is it coincidence or is it happenstance? What is it that they're coming up at this time when we're going into another election? We're being reminded of ghosts, essentially, from the past. And I see, Jambi, what do you think?
Whether it's a matter of coincidence or not is a bit early at the moment. But whether the cases, whether it will affect our cases now is still unclear, because this is not the first case that has been forwarded to the ASP. Cases from Chad, Nigeria, and Malawi had been forwarded to the ASP, which had then been forwarded to the Bureau of Assembly. But then after that, there has been absolutely no talk about it. Mm-hmm. So whether this is going to affect any even future cooperation or relations from Kenya is still very unclear on that.
Yes, because they actually say that the ASP is more of a political and diplomatic or partner with the ICC, so it can't hand down a binding decision of any kind. But what they have done is said that Kenya did fail to cooperate, and that's now a matter of record. Yeah. Would that affect, because they said the cases could be reopened against the Deputy President and the President, would that have any implication on any future cases?
Okay, and I saw this online. Mm-hmm. Some people feel that maybe the ICC is actually helping Uhuru, campaign for the election, because the last time
it actually worked in his favor.
It actually worked in his favor, and it could be that. It could be also that there might be pressure from civil society groups allied to the ICC to follow through and force Kenya to face consequences for non-cooperation. At the ASP itself cannot impose sanctions. It cannot, So what it would have to do is, it becomes a diplomatic matter. And having said that, how would it affect the cases later? It would be highly political for such a decision at the ASP to now turn around and become a matter before the court. I don't understand how that would happen unless there were several amendments, but I'd have to look into it. But I actually agree with the Kenyans. Maybe ICC is helping run for an election.
That's one side of it, but the other side of it is what are they gaining from this? Because they're not Kenyans and they don't have a tribal stake in our country, as everybody else seems to do. Why does this matter keep on arising? Why is it just not going away?
First, I think I would say that, flocking a dead horse does not necessarily revive it. So for me, it's a dead case. Whatever decision the ASP makes does not necessarily open another case or a new case for the president.
Or affect the ones which have been terminated.
At all. So it's as good as dead. But I think what the ICC is trying to communicate, Fatou Bensouda had filed this case specifically saying that the Kenyan government did not cooperate. So this is a win. Ideally for them, it's a win for the
locally. But what happens locally, though? Does it, apart from giving Uhuru brownie points?
Maybe, but I don't think. Maybe we wait and see. But for 3 days now, and nobody's talking about it, I don't think it's a big deal.
Yeah, well, we have to go for a break now. But before we do, we started off talking about defections from court, etc., etc. So now we ask you, should the MPs and governors who have defected from court be subjected to a by-election? Should the MPs and governors who have defected from court be subjected to a by-election? You can reach me on @JulieMasiga, @KTN News. The hashtag is News Sources. Please communicate with us and we'll sample some of your views during the show. But right now we have to go for a break. Don't go too far. We'll be right back.